Good morning, good evening, good night, and good afternoon to everyone out there on the internet. I'm Steve D from Tin Star Games, and this is Lancing with Myself, the 5-minute weekly show where I talk about being a freelance creative and game designer when you're low on spoons and low on cash, and how to get your game and make it and get it out there and be a game designer and not go insane. This week I want to talk about whether your game has a place in the market, which is a big question and it's a word that's thrown around a lot, but let's talk about it. In the last couple of years, there's been what has been dubbed the fire hose effect, where just a huge volume of games have come out, and the market has switched from one that is sort of adopting a game and playing it for over and over again and becoming favorites into something that is just constantly demanding the new thing, like cinemas or even books these days, where it's just come out, be read once or twice, be forgotten. And that's caused a lot of things to change in the industry. Certainly there are now so many games out there, it's easy to think, well, my game's kind of just like that. Where is its place? But also what's happening is, of course, companies are trying to get as big a market share as they possibly can, which has caused games to really tunnel down into a sense of there's a very constrained idea of what the mainstream will tolerate. Not too complicated, not too simple, not too artistic, not too creative. There's a certain level of how much we can expect our audience to tolerate. And so games have become more moderate, more mainstream, more the same. There's a lot of set collection, a lot of worker placement, a lot of deck building that's all in that sort of central space. And that also might make you think, well, is there a place for my game? It's not like that. It's weird. It's different. I am someone who, for some reason insists on making very strange, very weird games that are never going to be particularly popular, even among the indie set, because I just think weird ways that not as many people connect with. So a lot of the time I'm going, this game kind of works, but I'm not sure it has a market. And that's an ongoing question. But I do take comfort and hope in the fact that every time I go to the game store, I do find some things that are just increasingly weird. Around the edges of the fire hose, people have started to go, well, maybe our way to get to the market is to push those limits. I was looking at, so there's a game called Twilight Struggle now. They put out a semi-sequel called Imperial Struggle. Now, Twilight Struggle was already a fairly complex game with a simple core. This one is way off the charts. It's back to being what we used to call an old bookshelf game. The manual is ridiculously thick. There's all these paragraphs like 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. It's an incredibly complex game that even the really heavy fans are going to have just beyond what people normally think of as heavy, and we've actually seen increasingly the market pushing it heavier and heavier around the edges because Euro fans are sort of demanding more and more of a challenge. So, but even compared to that, this has gone really out there and gone, no, look, this is a game that is going to take you, you have to be a goddamn expert to even understand and play and predict. It's a good game, but boy, is it complex. And I'm like a lot of people, like if it didn't have that goodwill, it might not find a market, but they've gone for that. They've gone, look, we think the market will stretch. And I think there's also things happening at the other end as well, where people are going, you know what? We want compact, we want simple, and it can be really simple. That's why there's so many 18-card games. That's why these lovely games made by Button Shine, things like that. People are hungry for, let's see how simple it can be. And that's what legacy games are doing. Let's see how long a game can play. Let's see how short a game we can play. Let's see, what are these limits that we can push? And that's happening in the artistic scene, of course. If you go to amazing cons, you'll see these lyric games and games that are experimental and poetic and personal, games that are serious and deep, games that are tackling big subjects. But also, games that are pushing these boundaries, that are finding limits about how much we can put in a game, how much we can take out of a game. Can we make it more complex? Can we make it, stranger, more different? Can we explore narrative in different ways? And a lot of these are overlapping, but a lot of them are just chiseling away at the edges. And so that tells to me that, like, if you bring me a game and I'm going to be like, well, this is it might struggle to find an audience because it's weird or it's hard or it's simple or it's strange. And the audience is going to be like, that's a bit weird. But we have this wonderful effect where the fire hose is now creating, shall we say, a foam around the edges that is capturing this thing. And you can actually go out there and go, well, this isn't like your other kind of games. And people are they're a little bit jaded with the center. And that means they're getting hungry for that. And that means there is a place for your game. And I think that's really important these days because it's easy to get despair and go, oh, I think this is really complicated, or it needs exactly 5 players, or it only really works with 8 or more people. It's a game that takes 4 hours, and everyone demands the shorter play experience these days. It's about a really deep setting, so I don't know if people are going to get into it. It's about a really obscure historical period, or it's about, something that only I know about. It's about, the intricacies of Etruscan sculpture or something. All these little barriers can pop up, and you shouldn't ignore the fact that you want to talk to people, but you can push those limits. You will find an audience in these days, and thanks to the internet and smaller productions and tiny companies out there trying things, and the audience being just hungry for new and exciting things. They want their boundaries to be pushed. So there is absolutely a place for your game, no matter how strange. And I want you to hang on to that hope and make that weird game, even if it, it's like might not be picked up by most publishers. There's a place for it somewhere. It can find a slot on a shelf, and there's someone out there who's like, I need a game that's just really hard, or a game that's about, Etruscan sculpture, and I'm not getting what I want. That person's out there. They're waiting for your game. They want your really weird shit. So make that weird game. It doesn't matter how complex, simple, long, short, up, down, back, forth, weird it is. Make the weird game, because there is a place for your game if you make it right. And that's that's the hopeful message. There is a place for your strangeness. So make that game, get it out there, and you'll be able to find that audience. Right. Till next time, that's my message of hope. I've been Steve D. This has been Lance with myself. Be good, play games, pat dogs, have fun. See you next time.